What is up, party people? Welcome back. I feel like it's been a minute here, but we're back. It's Mr. Pandaria time. We have the MoP beta. Been playing all the classes, all the healers specifically. Starting to work through some of the DPS as well, but learning a lot about the game, kind of how it's working. I can give you my input, and I'm going to go through kind of just like a quick look on each healer, what's really exciting to play about it, how it feels to play, what kind of stuff does it feel good in, what stuff does it not feel good in, and then ultimately give you guys a little bit of a tier list on which healers are the most fun and also which ones are the best, because I know most y'all care which one's the best, but some of them are really fun. I mean, that's like the big highlight of Mr. Pandaria is actually how fun all these classes are because of the class design. So first up here, we're going to be talking about the Holy Paladin, okay? So Holy Paladin is my #1 pick of most interested in fun-wise to play going into Mr. Pandaria, because it was my main in a little bit of Cataclysm, I guess you say, and I got really into Shaman in retail. So my outlook and thoughts on Holy Paladin in the beta, very fun to play, very powerful. It's definitely not the best, definitely not the worst, but it feels really good and satisfying to play. A couple highlights on here is you do have, if you did play Cataclysm, you do have a very Cataclysm-like playstyle where like your crits feel very powerful, strong, and you have really good cooldown usage. You have you get the introduction of double bop, double freedom, double sack. You still have your wings, divine favor, holy prism. You have guardian of the ancient kings. A lot of cooldowns to utilize. And also, what people forget about is the CC, man. So you already have Hammer of Justice, right, like always, but you also have the option to either play Fist of Justice, which makes you a 30-second cooldown Hodge. You can play Repentance. Not as good because don't forget it does break on, dots, but one of the most powerful parts is actually the fear. So you can actually spec into having a spammable, not spammable, 12-second cooldown, fear. So you can mix and match, and it makes Holy Paladin blend with literally any comp because you have the CCs to back it up. If you're playing with a mage, you might want to play the fears. If you're playing with a warlock or a boomy, you might want to play Repentance. Well, I guess fear and clone don't DR, so that works either way there. But you can kind of flex to make yourself fit to each comp that you do play. Also, so healing feels pretty good. I would say like above average, slightly above average, or about average. So nothing too crazy, but the damage is really satisfying to play. We do have the introduction of Denounce, which is just a super fun ability to press. You do have Sacred Shield that comes into the game, and also this final row of Holy Prism, specifically more so Holy Prism. Holy Prism's the best one. What's this guy talking about here? Holy Prism is just so satisfying, way more satisfying than retail version of it. It is very powerful. It's actually a really good heal / damage, and you also have introduction of a lot more speed talents. So Long Arm of the Law is a really fun talent to utilize because if you are playing retail, you're used to using Judgment all the time. You get 3-second cooldown, or sorry, 3 seconds of a sprint every 6 seconds. So it's up 50% of the game. You're just running around full speed. You pair that with double freedom. You're a little race car man. And then finally, I do want to mention is the offensive capabilities of a Shaman. Okay, so there's a really cool talents or glyphs you can take that can make you into a quote-unquote Shaman. So you can decrease the healing of Holy Shock by 50% and increase the damage of it. You can also play Word of Glory, which every time you spend Holy Power, you get 3% damage for 6 seconds. For each Holy Power spent. So if you do a 3 Holy Power, heal, you're going to give yourself a 9% damage for the next 6 seconds. And then you can also finally play Harsh Words, which is another cool one. You could play, so Word of Glory could also be used offensively. So kind of like think about Denounce in retail if you do play that, where you can use your Holy Power offensively rather than defensively. There's also like, a slow, you actually have a 50% slow every time you judgment some, and you combine that with Long Arm, you get some movement speed in there as well. So really cool to have. And then actually, sorry, one more thing. Where is it? Oh, Glyph of Denounce. So you can also play this, which actually really helps your offensive gameplay in something like threes. Every time you Holy Shock reduces the cast amount of your Denounce, so it makes those Denounce a lot easier to get off. And do not forget, critting is really big. Back in the Classic expansion, specifically MoP, people get really fat crits that can win games, and having an anti-crit effect, as in Denounce, is really impactful into the game. Finally, just talking about weaknesses. So I would say the biggest weakness is probably all of overall throughput outside of your cooldowns. So if you do blow your cooldowns in the openers, you are going to struggle. You can spam Flash Heal to get somebody up. You do have the option, but it does take a little bit of effort outside those big cooldowns. There's some other classes that have a, you know, a better recovery, if you will, that are outside of cooldowns. You know, some like Paladin is one that has really high throughput in its cooldown windows, and then kind of like meh healing outside of it, where there's other healers that don't have those crazy spikes. They just have really good sustain healing, more like a Druid or a Shaman. So Paladin does kind of have that weakness. If you do get stuck without any cooldowns, you kind of just fucked. But you know, on the bright side, if you do spread your cooldowns out well and you do manage them, you know, you have, like I said, you have Wings, Divine Favor, Guardian, Ancient Kings. Those are your big main 3 heals. Healing cooldowns, you can actually survive. And also, I forgot about CC. You also have Blinding Light. Frick, man. Baseline have a 6-second AoE blind. It is a cast, though, unlike retail. So just note of that. Yeah, I think that's it about Holy Paladin I want to talk about. So when it comes to Holy Paladin, I'm gonna put it in the overall. I'm gonna put it in. I think I'm gonna put it in the A tier. I think it is good enough to be in that ballpark there. You're gonna notice with, yeah, you'll see when I get to the other ones here. I'm gonna put it in an A tier. I think in 3s it probably will be relatively stronger than in 2s, because there's some other specs that you'll see in 2s that are probably a little bit better, but it's definitely still a solid healer overall. So next up here, we are going to look at, what do we got up, I think, next? I think the Orisa Druid. Alright, we got Resto Druid coming up next. So Resto Druid, I'm sure you've heard about going into Mists of Pandaria, because they're pretty much all the talk. If you're new around the block, Resto Druid is known as the best healer of Mists of Pandaria, and I will tell you why. Okay, I don't know, my UI is this big, but you know what, fuck it. Whatever, we'll stick with it. So really cool things about Resto Druid. If you are familiar with the retail version of Druid and Cataclysm, it's kind of like a little bit of a blend of both. You have the utility that you had in retail, but you also have the the satisfying healing rotation and healing, I guess, toolkit as you had in Kata. It's just stronger than it was previously. So some niche things, obviously, number one, we gotta talk about Symbiosis, one of the coolest abilities ever added. You can share an ability with a teammate, that you can get Ice Block, deterrence, you can give your enemies all sorts of abilities, Healing Touch, Rejuve, you can give them Solar Beam if you get it to an LE. Or enhance. So really cool utilization on that. You have really great mobility. So Displeasure was an all-time favorite mobility ability from Druids, that you can, you know, blink around everywhere. Cenarian Ward is a really strong version of what it used to be. So this is actually a massive heal versus like the retail version where it's just like a hot. You know, you can choose Typhoon, and this is the good Typhoon from Cataclysm, not the whatever the heck retail version is, where it's like just short range. You get the introduction of Soul of the Forest, which gives you 100% haste on the next, so it gives you fast cast clones, fast cast everything. So again, when I was talking about that recovery healing on Holy Paladin, this is something that Orisa Druid does actually have. You do have the option to play Incarn. No one really does that, or no one really plays Force of Nature. And this ability is just so freaking good. So, but you can utilize these if you will. Maybe in like RBGs, Incarnation could be good for those big team fights, buffing your damage or your healing by a ton. You also get your really cool utility roll. All of these are awesome to use. Bash is a 5-second stun with a 50-second cooldown. Roar, just, I mean, these two are kind of just like retail, but I remember these CCs are a way more valuable than they are in retail, because it's all about CC chains in Mists of Pandaria. That's like the big thing is, you know, try to chain CC as much as you can, but it's not as like micro CC as retail, but you do want to have a ton of CC just to keep those chains going. And our Druid has been notorious to have some comps where you can just literally go nuts with the CC, you know, clone, poly, fear, not DRing, instant cast clone. On that note, Nature's Swiftness is a 1-minute cooldown. This goes for all Druid specs. Well, I think Boomy, I don't know about Feral, but Boomy and Resto Druid, for sure, is you have a 1-minute cooldown that you can instant cast Cyclone, which is incredibly powerful. And then finally here, one of the coolest abilities also that you have is Heart of the Wild, and this is a better version than retail because it also has a baseline effect. I was trying to preach about this in retail forever, is that you not only have the 45 seconds of being very powerful, strong, powerful offensively, but you also have 6% baseline intellect or whatever stat at all times, which does make up for not using it all the time. That 6% is actually, I tested it, it's not even, you know, it's pretty comparable to the 20% damage you get on Wrath. Like, you might as well just play this and have that all the time in terms of just damage output. And then going into some other stuff here, I would just say, like, also in terms of just having fun, and this is it's not as intensive as like something like retail is. So, you know, you have hots for sure, but like you only really need life, bloom, and rejuve on your target. You don't need to have 18 hots just to, you know, keep your allies' health from going down. So it's a lot more sustainable and more enjoyable. Something I've been preaching forever on retail is there's just too many dang hots. I have to press 5 globals just to do any meaningful healing. You are able to really, you know, you could genuinely don't need to life bloom. I found myself in the habit of like life blooming before everything because you're used to the mastery in retail, but mastery is different in so you have the cataclysm mastery. So after you use a single, like a targeted heal, so like a regrowth or a nourish or a swift mend, you get a periodic hot buff. So it forces you to constantly be throwing up the hard cast heals or the swift mends to make sure that you're getting your best benefit out of your hot. So just really fun gameplay out of there. You know, more utility stuff. We gotta keep moving on. We have Might Ursoc, which is like an internal BM trinket, Battlemaster trinket. You have mushrooms that can charge up as you rejuve and then explode. You can also wild charge the mushrooms and knock people out of stealth. Really cool stuff on there. You still do have Nature's Grass for roots. Those are a lot more powerful. You have access to Hibernate, Clone. You can NS Hibernate, NS Clone. You do have Genesis as well. Cat form abilities, going from Cataclysm here, you do have the opportunity to press the cat form abilities without having to be hit capped all the time. It does help, but you do get, no, not hit caps, I'm sorry, I'm talking about intellect converts to agility. So unlike Cataclysm, where if you are in Resto Gear you can't do any damage, you can actually do damage now, because when you're in cat form you do get intellect turns to Killer Instinct, yeah. Intellect turns to agility when you're in bear or cat form, so it allows you to actually utilize cat form and kitty weave, if you will. Maim is also in the game. Really easy to get maims, because you also have access to, where is it? Primal Fury. No, I think it's down here. Which is every time you crit, you get double combo points, so it's really easy to get maims off. You don't have multi-target combo points, so that's a little bit of a downer on there, but overall your toolkit is just phenomenal. The damage from it is very mid. I wouldn't say it's probably one of the lower damage outside of Heart of the Wild. You pump during Heart of the Wild, and Moonfire does decent damage overall, but don't really have much damage outside of that. So, you know, when I was talking about the scale of healing, you have really good sustained heal. Your peak healing really isn't that great. I mean, to be honest, like as you see here, you really don't have any big healing cooldowns. You have a very short cooldown Iron Bark, so I think it's 30 seconds in PvP if I'm not mistaken. So only 30-second cooldown on that, and you know, you could just Swift Mend into Rejuve or to Regrowth, and Sonaran Ward is obviously more powerful, so you really don't have burst heals, because typically you're going to be using NS on Clone, but your sustained healing is phenomenal, and you can utilize Clone to clone targets and then top them, let your hots top them yourself. So that is the strength. It's a strength / weakness, and then any other weaknesses, I would say. Not much on Mists of Pandaria. It is just such a dominant healer because of Cyclone and the ease of healing and the shapeshifting and whatnot. So it's just a really great pick if you are playing it. And for the tier list, of course, we're going to be S tier. I think it is S tier in 2s and 3s. It's probably the best overall healer in the game that you could play. So that is a great choice for you to pick. And I think it's a very fun one as well. You'll definitely enjoy Resto Druid. There's so much you can do on it. All right, next up. Oop, I pressed exit game. Of course, this wouldn't go as smooth as it could be. Next up here, we'll talk about Mistweaver. So Mistweaver Monk. New spec going into Mists of Pandaria. A lot of you probably don't even know about Mists of Pandaria Mistweaver. I honestly didn't either. So that's okay, because it is not the same as retail. Not even close. There's so much difference. You are utilizing Chi as a resource like combo points or holy power rather than just straight mana. So you do have to work toward your Chi, but it is a very unique way to play, and I love how it kind of forces you to integrate damage into your rotations and whatnot. So some big things here that you'll notice is you have a lot of different abilities. So, you know, you do have Renewing Mist, Soothing Mist, and so big thing. Oh, so your first big change here is Enveloping Mist. So Enveloping Mist is a 3 Chi ability. So you need 3 combo points essentially to utilize this. So you can't be spamming this all the time. It is a massive heal for what it is, and yeah, you don't really need to use it that often. But so Surging Mist is your next big heal, or this is kind of like your. This is like a mega hot. This is like a big burst heal. So they do similar healing to my knowledge. No, they don't. This does double. So this does 122k. This one does 50k. But you could also combo this with Thunder Focus Tea, which makes it double. So you are going to get big bursts. The Surging Mist is one of your generators of chi. And Enveloping Mist is one of your spenders. Okay. The other spenders are going to come from your melee abilities. So coincidentally, that is you do utilize your melee abilities quite often. If you would like, you certainly don't have to, but it is really cool to be able to do it because Mistweaver is one of the highest damage healers in the game. I did not know how powerful they were, and they are incredible in twos because of it. I've been playing a lot of this, and I quite honestly, I think I have my best win rate on this guy. I have 25 and 9 on this, versus probably some of the other ones that I'm just been LFGing random people. But I think I have my best win rate on Monk just because of how powerful the damage is on it. So you can use Jab, so it's a little bit different than it is in retail. So Jab is your generator. It does cost a lot of mana though. And Tiger Palm is cost 1 chi, and Black Oak Kick costs 2 chi. So you do want to use Tiger Palm, and you want to use Black Oak Kick, because Black Oak Kick calls the second part here, empowers your seal, empowers you with a seal, basically causes your damage to heal, the atonement part of it, like what is it called, Teachings of the Monastery or something like that in retail. So you want to be using a Black Oak Kick, but then you also want to use Tiger Palm because it allows your attacks to ignore 30% of enemies armor for 20 seconds. So once you get both of those up, you just end up spamming Tiger Palms because they're, I think they do virtually the same, Tiger Palm virtually does more damage. Black Oak Kick also is a baseline AoE ability, which is not baseline in retail, so just another different thing. But you're able to kind of just pump some serious damage onto your targets while also doing a lot of healing. You know, if you're keeping up your renewing miss, you can sit here and just, you know, kick, palm, and as you can see, I'm actually doing healing off of this. I do have renewing miss, but even when I take off renewing miss, I'm doing healing for all the damage that I'm doing. So really, really cool playstyle, how you can kind of hybrid. I know people play like the hybrid version in retail. That's kind of like the baseline way to play Monk. I will note some other things. You do have, you know, Expel Harm's kind of the same. Chi Brew is a really cool ability to kind of get burst on some of these goes. So, you know, you can get chi so you can do damage or healing faster on the fly. So that kind of helps out with the burst healing. Because one of the weaknesses is like, I wouldn't even say it's a weakness. I thought it was a weakness until I talked about healing orbs, but we'll talk about that in a second. Actually, you know what? We'll talk about that now. Healing orbs. What the heck, man? These things are incredibly powerful. I forgot how strong these were. I know people orbotted back in the day, but you don't need an orbot to make the most benefit of these things. So your emergency heal is actually orbs. So wherever your person is, let's say they get stunned here, you're just gonna spam orbs on top of them, and each of these orbs will do an incredible amount of healing. I think it was 40k. So reference that. That is almost like casting a surging mist. So being able to just spam spheres on somebody is just so powerful. Yes, you do have to hit them with it, but I think you can actually even make cursor macros to put them on your target, but then you need binds for it. I've just been free casting them. I haven't had a problem with it. You just let your teammate know, you know, run through orbs if you're playing with them consistently. Another cool thing you have in Nimble Brew, which is clears you of all fears, roots, and stuns, and reduces such effects by 60% for 6 seconds. Really, really powerful to have a second trinket, essentially. And then you also combine that with Dematerialize, which is over here. When you do get stunned, you cannot be hit by anything for 2.5 seconds. And it has a 10-second cooldown, so you can't repeatedly do this. But between that and Nimble Brew, you are just a machine to just keep going and going and going. It's nice to have that because one of the weaknesses of Monk is susceptibility to CC. That is the biggest weakness of Monk, is you're just you know, typically you're playing in the open, you're going to get CC'd, and yeah, all that kind of stuff on there. Let me continue with some of this other stuff. I know I'm not getting everything in here, but trying to just give you a rough idea. Chi Wave, these Chi abilities are actually really good, unlike retail. So Chi Wave is actually like my top damage some games, just because of how powerful it is, and really good healing as well. It just pops back and forth. You can also opt for Chi Burst. Really, really cool to have these abilities actually do something. And then, you know, going down here, you have Ring of Peace. This is the old Ring of Peace, which makes it a silence / disarm if enemies within the circle. You can play the charging Ox Wave or just leg sweep. And Invoke is actually really cool. This thing pumps so much damage, and it also will, I believe, it also contributes to healing via the seal from your Black Oak Kick. So when you have that buff, which is like your atonement buff, you can use your Tiger, and your Tiger's auto attacks will also heal, and it does so much damage and so much healing. Like, it does like hundreds of K's damage. Like, for reference, you have 300 health. Like, it usually does around 300 total over the duration of it. Really, really powerful. For 45 seconds it lasts. So you got that. I might be missing some stuff, but that's kind of the gist of it. Really, really fun playstyle. I honestly haven't played it in 3s, but 2s, it is so much fun and very, very good. And some people might ask about the stances. They've kind of changed the stances so that when you do shift back in, it's not very smooth as it was before. Usually people would go into the Fierce Tiger and then Spinning Crane Kick to get the muscle memory thing here so that your next Tiger Palm or Black Oak Kicks damage is increased. And it restores mana, so it just kind of gives you a big hit with that, and then they would swap it back and forth. I don't think that's really where you... I mean, most people probably aren't going to do that, but I think it's... I heard someone say it's not possible, but I don't know. I haven't really tested it enough. I was still learning the Monk baseline, but that is it for... So, biggest plus is damage. Really, really high damage, but probably the highest damage. It is the highest damage healer, I'll say. Weakness is susceptibility to CC. And the healing is pretty good. Sustain healing is pretty good. Like I said, with these healing orbs, man, they are phenomenal. As long as your team is not like incredibly hard to get orbs onto or something like that, and they're aware of everything going on. Really, really good. Also, want to know another thing: paralysis is way better than retail. It is a 4-second CC, and if you're behind them, it's 6 seconds. So if you're behind a target and you paralysis them, it's 6 seconds. Last 6 seconds, and it's a 15-second cooldown. So really, really powerful. It's almost like a pseudo interrupt as well, a ranged interrupt that you can use it as. So really, really crazy. So yeah, so Monk, I am actually going to put on the A tier as well. So I think they're both solid healers. I haven't had too much experience with the 3v3 bracket with Monk. I would say it's probably on the lower A tier in terms of 3v3, just because again the CC is just so incredible in threes, and you really can't be affording to be in there all the time doing damage. But in a 2v2 sense, I'd even see an argument for putting it as an S tier with certain compositions and against certain compositions. All right, next up here on the list we got Discipline and Holy Priest. So first up, Discipline. Guys, this is, from Disc Priest being so freaking good in TBC, Wrath, and Kata, and it's actually the #1 healer, or arguably the #1 healer in PvE in Mists of Pandaria. Discipline Priest, I'll start you off here, nice and strong. It is the worst healer. I mean, I don't know if I could put it in. I'll leave it in B. I really don't think any of the healers are that bad, but it is definitely the not a great healer. I mean, either B or C. We'll keep it here for right now. So, Disc Priest is really fun in general, okay? It's very similar to Cataclysm, except that Atonement is way better than it used to be. So Atonement now works at a 40-yard range, and it hits anything. Or, sorry, not hit, it hits anything. It heals anybody in range. You don't have to, like, it used to be a 10-yard range from the target, so it was really inefficient to, like, heal yourself and stuff like that. So you no longer have that. You still do have Evangelism, which makes, reduces the mana cost and whatnot. So it actually does have very good damage. Don't get me wrong, you can actually do some really crazy damage, but the weakness of it comes into play the same exact thing as retail, right? So MoP is notorious for really, really high instant cast CC and long CC chains. You do not have the recovery. Just plain up, you do not have it at all. Holy Priest has Serenity. You have pretty much every other healer has an answer for it, but if you lose momentum on disc, you kind of fall through really quick. So there are probably some competitions that work well, things with momentum, maybe like a Rogue Mage or something like that, where you can actually just sit there and pump damage. But if you get trained or you get, constantly CC'd, it's kind of a pain in the butt. It's not that bad that you can't play it. I think Holy Priest just outshines it in pretty much every fashion, because Holy Priest has the capability to do more damage with the chakras, but it also has better healing and better utility with Chastise. So kind of has everything, unfortunately, that Disc has, but it's just a little bit better. The one thing that Disc has over the other ones is pretty good healing. I would probably put it as the #2 healer behind Mistweaver Monk, just because that Monk damage, I just couldn't believe how strong that Monk damage was. So there's that. Mana is not very efficient on Disc compared to some of the other healers as well. There is currently a bug. I mean, what I would hope is a bug, that Spirit regen is just is like crazy right now. So pretty much no healer is running out of mana, which is kind of a problem. So especially for testing purposes. So I can't really tell you, but even with that potential mana bug, Disc still will So do with that what you will. So just everything is kind of pretty high mana costs across the board. Smite's 8k mana, Shield is 13k mana, Penance is nearly 10k mana. It's just a lot, where other classes have like virtually 0 cost abilities that are rather good at healing percentage wise. So yeah. So Disc, it has a place potentially, maybe with Rogue, or I should have tried playing with the Rogue. I haven't had a chance to play with that. So maybe with a Rogue, you can actually make it work, just because you can kind of pump and have the momentum on it. But for the most part, Disc is just not going to be your oh, I'm going to do Holy 2 here. Not going to be your #1 pick. So like I said, for that reason, I'm going to put Disc at B tier. You could even argue it even lower than that. But I wouldn't say that, just because the Priest Toolkit, having PI, or PS for yourself, having Spectral Guy's Fear is just so powerful. You can have potentially MC, Void Tendrils, Siphene, like just the utility of priest itself is actually really solid. So, and you can do the throughput. Like I said, if you could sit in the back and free cast the whole time, you have the throughput to survive. You just don't have like that little extra oomph that some of the other specs have. So when it comes to Holy Priest, I'll say Holy Priest is virtually the same as this priest, except that it does have the option to do more healing and more damage. So you do have the utilization of the chakras. The chakras are the big thing. Note, this is a PvP only thing, okay? So that you do not have the crazy chakra switching that you do in in PvE. So this shows here, reduce the cooldown of your chakra by 25 seconds. So you cannot constantly swap chakras in PvE, but you can in PvP. So being able to use one of these, this increases your damage by 50% and reduces the mana cost, I believe, right? It reduces the mana cost by 90%, so it actually costs literally no mana, and it does more damage than disc. You know, hitting this stuff's just so much damage on here. So, you know, having the capability to do that is just why play disc at that point. And then, you know, you just swap back to your, what do I have this as? You swap back to your other chakra, and you have a very, very chunky heal of Holy Writ Serenity. It's a big instant heal, and then it increases your crit chance by 25%. So another cool thing about MoP in general is crits. Is crit actually feels like a good thing to cast, you know, compared to some of the later expansions. So being able to heal through all that. And Lightwell is also a really good passive heal. Renews, you know, all that. Basically, it's a disc, but a little bit better, because you have the potential to do more damage, you have the potential to do more healing, and you have Chastise, the opportunity to Chastise. So that is where I will probably put Holy Priest. And it does, let's say, it does shine well with Hunters. So that's kind of like the big partner in Holy Priest, is that it excels with comps that utilize Hunter, because your Fear just works so well with Trap. They set the trap, you Spectral guys, feather in, and then go for a Fear off of it. Just works really, really well. Compared to some of the other healers and whatnot. So Holy Priest I'm going to put up here as well. I would say Holy Priest in general is probably a bit higher than, I mean, you can even argue it's better than Holy Paladin. I think they're probably pretty close on that realm, but definitely able to play both of these. All right, and then last but not least, we have the Restoration Shaman. So Restoration Shaman is the one healer I actually did not try out too much. And that is because I queued into a couple and a bunch, and the playstyle just gives me, I have no interest in the playstyle of how it plays. So Resto Shaman is by no means bad. It is potentially one of the best healers, actually. It's just, all right. So it is very similar to retail style. You have Riptide, you have very powerful healing streams, especially paired with rushing streams. You have Unleash Elements that empowers your next heal, and then you either use that for a Riptide, or you can use that for a Healing Surge for a big fat crit. Okay, that's kind of it to it. That's pretty much the entire healing rotation on that. Everything else comes into play with totems. Okay, so you know you have Healing Stream Totem, you have what other ones? Capacitor Totem is a big one that comes into play in MoP. It's a 5-second AoE stun, so it's actually pretty dang good. And you can also combine that with Totemic Projection to be able to get those off. But the general gameplay of it is run around pillars in Ghost Wolf while you get trained, and keep pressing Healing Stream, and keep pressing Riptide, and then Unleash, and then, you know, or more Unleashes, or more Riptides or Healing Surge on it. So it's just not my interest. It doesn't really have damage. The CC, I mean, you do have Hex, which is a rather powerful CC, but mages are very prominent in this. Mages and druids, you know, boomies and pharaohs are very prominent in this expansion, so doesn't even get the best value out of it. All in all, it's just not that fun. Power-wise, yes, it does a great amount of healing. It pairs well with dampener type comps. You know, maybe I've seen, you know, Warrior Archon was actually pretty good in 2s, and then in 3s, you know, you got the MLSs. You can even play Lock or Ellie Lock, LS, or whatever you want to call it. You can kind of do all of those things. It's really, really good dampener. It's not mana efficient as of right now, but again, I don't know if that's coming back from this spirit bug or whatever's going on. But yeah, any other highlights? I mean, this stuff's kind of in the game already. This stuff's all in the game. And you do have NS. You can NS Hex, which is pretty nice to have on a 1.5 minute cooldown. I just really don't have much to say about it, unfortunately. So it's really just like retail, and it's not very interesting. Your damage is very subpar. for what it is. Like, you can't even do very meaningful damage. It's like, what, 30k Lava Burst, which is like less than a Holy Shock or less than an instant cast Holy Fire. So you don't really have damage. Your CC is okay. A lot of the big skill is coming in from kicking, and your offensive pressure or contribution is really coming down to interrupting and then grounding totem. Being able to try to ground like these instant casts, cyclones and polys and stuff like that. Like, that's the skill ceiling, and just being a goalie, essentially, just not letting the other team win the game, and that's where you excel as the Arsham. So for that reason, I'm going to put it so in the 3v3 bracket. So it's kind of on the cusp here. For 3v3, I think at the top end, Arsham is right up there with our Druid. Okay, potentially even better depending on the comp matchups. So it's up there in threes. I think in twos, it's not. I think Druid just has the advantage in twos. But in threes, I'm going to put it there. So I'm going to put it at the top of the A tier for that reason. So I do think in threes, it has the potential to be an S tier healer, depending on the comp. And otherwise, I think it's more around an A tier in some of the other ways of the game. Okay, so with that said, that is all the healers in terms of just the general outlook on them. Hopefully I was probably a little bit biased on the classes that I played more, like Holy Paladin and Druid and Monk. But there it is, whatever the class. And the last thing I did want to talk about is which classes are the most fun to play. So power aside, which ones did I enjoy playing the most? And I want to just reset this here real quick. Oh my god. Sure, just enable the ads. Oh my god. Go away. Okay. So when it comes to what is the most fun specs to play, and I'm not gonna rank these in tiers just because I want to have a strict order, at least my experience playing all of them. I think you probably will have the most overall fun on Druid. Okay. So Druid will probably be the number one. Disregard the letters here, okay? Number two, I think most fun healer would probably go to Monk. I think it's just such a unique playstyle and different than retail and whatnot, and you would be very excited to play it. You know, Crackling Jade Lightning does a lot of damage. You have with the knockback, you have CC, you have Gray CC, you have Port, you have great defensives. It's just a really fun overall class to play. I would say number three is gonna be Holy Paladin, because actually, you know what? I'm gonna take that back. Yeah, maybe it's a little biased, but fuck it. It's my video. I would say Holy Paladin, just because the way the crits feel, because again, crit is still like a thing in Mistweaver Monk. It feels very meaningful and very fun to play. And you also have the opportunity to do damage, CC, you have mobility. And for me, like, damage, mobility, and CC are like the big number three things to make a healer fun to play. And I think it does meet the criteria for all of those things. Next, I'm going to say Holy Priest. So I would say Holy Priest after that, because again, so much stuff to do on it. Like, these healers are freaking fun, man. This is one thing in Mistweaver Monk you got to take away, regardless of the metas. Every spec is fun to play. So Holy Priest next. The chakra swapping is just such a unique playstyle. Again, a lot of skill ceiling, very high skill ceiling on it as well. So a lot of stuff you can actually work on and do and to exceed. And it just feels really fun to play. After that, I'm going Disc. And then our Shaman. Disc, again, like I talked about, really fun to just be able to do the damage. Like I said, viability-wise, it's just not it completely when it comes to the, you know, having the whole package of as a healer in arena. But it does have very good damage, and it's just fun to play just to do damage like in retail. But like I said, you can do the same stuff with Holy Priest. It's probably a little bit better. And then Arsham, I think Arsham is just so obviously the least fun healer in the game. Like I mentioned, it is a very strong healer if that is up your alley, but I think you've probably, if you played Arsham in any other expansion, you've experienced Arsham. It's just you have a couple extra new totems. That's really about it. It's not very interesting at all. So that is all for this, I guess almost like a class picking guide to Mistweaver Monk for healers. And hope you all enjoy it. Leave a comment of any thoughts or maybe your opinions if they're different than mine. And hope to catch you guys on my stream or in Mistweaver Monk. Thank you for watching.